Sea of Stars was lauded by many as the best RPG released in 2023 that wasn't Baldur's Gate 3. It's one of the many games that I played for a couple hours and then put down and never picked back up because 2023 was one of the best years for video games that we've had in a very long time. However, as many of you probably know, something happened in around November and December that really shocked me. One of my favorite gaming content creators was outed for holding charity funds for almost a decade, letting the money his audience sent him in good faith depreciate to inflation. And even worse, he was using those funds for the event expenses, when he was explicitly saying 100% of the donations would be going to charity. Now, without getting too into the whole economics part of this, you can go watch Carl Jobst or Some Ordinary Gamers for their coverage on the situation because I don't really know much about this stuff and they were the ones who found all this stuff out. But we all know a specific something happened early in 2020 that had a lot of countries just hitting the money printer. That means whatever money you had sitting in the bank is worth a lot less. Same goes for the money that was sitting in the bank of the charity that the completionist was running. These events were called Indieland, and he's been doing these events for a very, very long time. And one of these games that was showcased in these events for the last 3 years was Sea of Stars. As a thanks for the completionist's promotion of this game, the developers of Sea of Stars put Gerard into their game. But once all this came out, the developers of the game took the opportunity to distance themselves from the completionist by taking him out of the game and replacing him with a new character. Now, this drama might be the dumbest reason I've ever picked a game back up to finish the main story out of anything in my backlog, but that is why I'm back playing this game, and that's why I'm here making this review. So major respect to Sabotage Studios for doing this, and thank you for clicking this video. This is going to be a pretty deep dive into the gameplay mechanics and story of Sea of Stars as I played through the game. If you don't want to have the game spoiled for you, which I really recommend playing this game, here's your chance to like the video and click off to something else. Thank you for watching anyways. Alright, on to the review. The game starts out with our two heroes, Zale and Valir, solstice warriors representing the sun and the moon, on their way to a campsite up on a mountain ridge. They're on a mission we know nothing about yet, and after this brief scene with a couple of battles thrown in the mix, we are brought back in time to where the game really starts. The two heroes are now with their childhood friend Garl in their cave hideout, when Garl says he wants to go see a giant serpent that they call the Sleeper. The group is all in, but first, a bell tolls, meaning the kids' mentors named Brewgraves and Erlina have returned. I'm gonna mess up that name so much in this review, be ready. Brewgraves and Erlina. Alright. So they go to visit them before heading out to this place called the Forbidden Cavern. The cavern is usually locked, but tonight is an eclipse and the door unlocks with a bit of Valir's lunar power. Inside the cave is infested with monsters, and it's not long before they notice the kids and surround them. Garl dives in front of one of the monsters' attacks to defend Zale, and he takes a spike to the eye, blinding him. Things look bleak for the kids, but just in time the headmaster rescues them from the monsters and takes away Garl's pain from his eye. But he is unable to bring his sight back. The headmaster brings the children back to the village before telling the Solstice apprentices to say goodbye to their friend, because they're going to be training in the sky for a long time to hone their skills. Now, at the classroom in the sky called Zenith Academy, the apprentices train their magical and physical prowess, as well as their skills in sewing a magical weave into fabric meant to enhance their abilities. Zale eventually gets bored, and he sneaks into the main room of Zenith Academy, eavesdropping on a conversation between their mentors and the headmaster. The mentors are clearly a little frustrated, wondering why the headmaster is pushing the kids so hard. We hear about this thing called the Great Eagle that brought the apprentices to their town, but also things like the Fleshmancer and the Dweller of Strife. The headmaster says it's not his place to question the Great Eagle, only to train the ones that it brings to him. But when Brewgraves brings up someone called Moyara and the twins, the headmaster snaps, telling him not to judge a sacrifice he can't comprehend, and shuts down the conversation, sending the mentors away. Now, these are a lot of names that I don't really know anything about, but I'm sure I will later. It was just a bit of an unexpected lore dump, and I wasn't really ready for it when it happened. But the kids train and sew for months on end, honing their skills, when one day the headmaster brings them up to the observatory. He tells the kids about dwellers and why the patrol their mentors went on was so necessary. Also saying that if you let a dweller grow for too long, they become these things called world eaters. Dwellers are usually immune to solstice magic unless it's a total eclipse, so the warriors scout their locations and cleanse them from the world when the eclipse happens. The headmaster says that there is only one remaining dweller that they know of, but he also says the Fleshmancer may have planted more seeds of evil that they haven't found yet. That is why the patrol is so important. Zale asks the headmaster about the conversation he overheard, but the headmaster just remains quiet and sends the kids back to their rooms. Years more training have passed until one day, the kids, now grown, sewed magical fabric worthy of the Elder Mist. They go to show the headmaster and he brings them to the observatory one more time, where they say their vows and are sent on their final test before they're sent up to see the Elder Mist. They jump down into a tomb where their trial begins, and this is where we get our first real taste of combat. If you've played games like Super Mario RPG, Paper Mario, or any of the Mario and Luigi games, you'll feel right at home with this combat. Pressing the A button at the right time grants you a bonus attack and lets you defend against enemy attacks. Zale and Valir also have magical attacks that function the same way. Press or release the attack button at the right time to get a bonus. Zale's fireball is very similar to Mario's hammer in the Thousand Year Door, and Valir's moon boomerang thing is essentially a green shell from the Mario and Luigi series. You can sneak up on enemies for a bit of bonus damage at the start, and enemies also have resistances and weaknesses, making the combat a little more dynamic. And sometimes enemies will have a gauge over their heads where you hit them with the corresponding attacks to handicap the damage they'll do, or completely disable the attack altogether. When you level up, you also get to choose a stat to boost, which is similar to the system in Paper Mario. All of this combined makes for one of the most deep and satisfying implementations of turn-based combat in the entire genre. Now, before I get too much further, I should note that in my Super Mario Wonder review, I kind of ragged on the game for having segments that were too similar to Celeste, and a lot of Nintendo fanboys were on my ass in the comments about it. But hear me out for a second, okay? This combat is different enough from this to where you can see the inspiration, but it's not too similar. They took the system of action commands and turn-based combat and added their own ideas into the system. This is similar enough to this that you don't see the inspiration, you just see the same thing with different graphics. I love when a developer is inspired by a game or series and can innovate on the formula. I love when producers sample something from another artist and spin it into a new beat for someone else to sing or rap over. There is a line between inspiration and plagiarism, and I just feel like in this specific instance, it was too far. Anyways, tangent over, back to the review. Zale and Valir make it to the end of the trial, and at the top is a golem called Word. Beating Word is the final test they must face before heading up to the Elder Mist. He's not too difficult by any means, but he is definitely a good boss to kind of wet your toes and get yourself ready for whatever is to come. And a good way to end off the tutorial. But after the trial is complete, the whole town comes to congratulate them, and they're sent off to see the Elder Mist. Well, everyone in the town except for Garl. Before we head out, the headmaster gives us relics, which can be used to give the party buffs or make the challenge a little harder should you want more of a challenge. And we are now sent off on our journey with the assignment of securing a passage to Wraith Island in time for the next eclipse. And we head off into the Forbidden Cave where they were attacked as kids and Garl lost his eye. Inside the cave, there are the same monsters from the trial, but there are also some puzzles the group has to get past. At the end of the cave, there is a massive creature called the Boss Slug that acts as the first real boss of the game, I would say. This guy poses a much larger threat than Word, but he's vulnerable to both sun and moon magic. Once he gets to low enough health, he spawns these little poisonous blobs, but this means he only has a couple more hits away from death, so I just focused on him and I was fine. The heroes make it through the cave, and we're met with a mysterious scene, with characters simply known as 1, 2, 3, and 4, talking around a table about how they're eager to see what potential Zale and Valir really have. Past the cave, there's a little fishing minigame, which is always a huge bonus. Any game with a fishing minigame in it is instantly better in my books, but I don't spend too long here, we have a mission to complete. So we make it to the mountain trail where the game started, and up at the campground, Zale and Valir are talking with each other about how they never got to say goodbye to Garl, when suddenly he just pops out of a nearby bush. Zale and Valir are initially really hesitant to let him tag along on such a perilous journey, but after a while he manages to convince them by saying he'll be their warrior cook, whatever that means. The group catches up by the fire, finally reunited after 10 years of training, and Garl teaches the group about cooking basics, which will be incredibly useful for the journey ahead. And the next day, we head out on our journey. Once the gang makes it up to the Elder Mist, he exclaims how surprised he is that Garl made it up to his domain. The headmaster noted a few times that part of being a solstice warrior is honing the ability to use magic without using magic, which the Elder Mist grants us the power to do. The Elder Mist sends the party to a trial in the clouds to take on their true final mission before becoming actual solstice warriors. This introduces the live mana mechanic to the game, which is basically just a way to infuse a party member's physical attacks with their magical energy. All members of the party can use this, including Garl, which is really nice. In this domain, there are 3 trials, one focused on combat, one focused on story, and one on exploration, each with their own puzzle the team has to get through before entering the final domain. After completing each trial, a stone obelisk at the center of the level is brought to the hub room, and once the group completes all 3 trials, the Elder Mist transfuses with the obelisk to give the team their true final test. A battle with the Elder Mist himself. This fight can actually be a bit of a challenge if you're not careful. There are 2 targets, the Elder Mist himself as well as his sword. The sword does a sweeping attack that hits all party members, but if you take it out, he'll only have his 1 arm, and 1 less chance to strike per turn. This is the first fight where it really seems like a careful balance between making sure you have live mana ready for when you need to use your basic attacks, timing out your blocks, and managing your party's MP. He will absolutely ruin your team if you're not careful. After the battle, the Elder Mist shows Zale and Valir how to control time with their magic. Now, hear me out. I haven't beat the game yet. I write these scripts as I play along, but isn't our mission to get to Wraith Island before the next eclipse? And if we can control time, shouldn't we have the ability to delay the next eclipse, negating the need for urgency? I'm definitely thinking too deep into it, but that's just where my mind went to. Maybe this will be answered later on, I don't know. The Elder Mist then uses some sort of telepathy to tell each party member their individual prophecies. Zale needs to stare at the night inside him to reach his full potential. Valir will create paths on water, like she's fucking Jesus or something. And although the Elder Mist isn't quite sure of Garl's prophecy, he tells him to be aware of his limits and that his heart might be warm enough to soothe a long tormented soul. The Elder Mist then sends the group on their way, and I can already tell Garl is going to be a little bit of comic relief throughout this journey, because he unintentionally gets the crew launched across the world when the Elder Mist gives them the password to activate the giant behind him, and the gang makes their way down the cliffside to the next area when the camera pans up to a mysterious character watching us before she creates a portal and jumps through it. Now my gamer instincts are telling me that this is that Moyara person the headmaster refused to talk about earlier, but honestly, I have no idea. Cool design though. On our way through the moorlands, we are met with a couple new enemies. There are these ants that burrow into the ground and are resistant to physical attacks, and there are these blue guys that are spinning around these flaming batons and throw bombs at you. There are a lot of things to collect here, and if you're keen on going out of your way to find the secrets, there are a lot in this beginning area. At the end of the route, the gang meets a girl studying runes. Her name is Teeks, and she's the last airbender. I mean, a traveling historian. She carries a book called The Lore Grimoire, which is filled with stories that they write about their travels. Teeks is extremely excited to meet Zale and Valir once she realizes they're solstice warriors, and Garl recruits her to our squad before setting up camp for the night. At the moment, she only has 1 story in her grimoire, the story of the Vespertine, but she intends on filling her book with stories of her travels like the internet historians before her. The story of the Vespertine details a crew of pirates led by their captain, a powerful mage by the name of Stormcaller, and their navigator, Hortense. The crew was extremely profitable until one day Hortense decided to quit the pirate life and turn to music. Captain Stormcaller refused her resignation though and stopped conjuring the winds the boat used to travel, stranding the boat and the entire crew in the middle of the vast ocean, dubbed the Sea of Nightmare. No matter how much the crew begged the captain to summon winds and bring them ashore, the captain remained stubborn, unwilling to move the ship, until Hortense agreed to continue as his navigator, until eventually they ran out of food and water. Once that happened, the crew mutinied and demanded the captain to walk the plank, but as Stormcaller sank into the ocean, he cursed the vessel he once piloted inside a deadly storm, where the ship remains to this day. Legends say every day at the precise moment Stormcaller laid the curse on the vessel, there's a brief moment where the weather clears, and many sailors recall seeing the Vespertine along their journeys, but still, many sailors avoid heading out at night altogether, lest they be caught inside the Sea of Nightmare. I thought that was a pretty cool campfire story, and I hope KingK has a lot more to come as the story progresses. But the crew is out of the moorlands, and they make it to the next town over, the Stonemason's Outpost. This little town is filled with mole people who are freaking out about a wizard named Malcolmud, who is in the mines blocking the pipes which play the melody that keep the sleeper dormant. Garl volunteers us to go solve their problem because we're solstice warriors and that's what we do or something, which, to be fair, there was a lot of talk about the sleeper being super dangerous if it wakes up earlier in this game, so this is probably important. So the crew heads into the mines to see what's going on. Jumping down into the mines, the crew finds the village elder, who many thought was there to help the village, but he actually says he went down into the mine to avoid listening to all the villagers' complaints. But now he's more afraid of going back up to the village without a solution and disappointing them. Typical fucking politician. Inside the mines, there are these bats with drills on them who can deal some serious damage if you don't time your blocks. And blocking the wind tunnels are these monsters called bush shrews, which are honestly less of a threat than the bats. You will also find the Mistral Bracelet, which allows you to push around these green blocks which are thrown around the mine. Pushing around these blocks is similar to the ice puzzles in Pokemon, which I'm a fucking god at, I'm not gonna lie. I remain undefeated in Pokemon ice puzzles. No one can dethrone me, not even you. After clearing out the wind tunnels and solving a couple of these puzzles, you reach Malcolmud's hideout, where you find out this guy everyone is afraid of is just a little bean who's been ostracized by his community for not being into digging like the other moles. He'd rather use magic and hang out with his pet salamander. Pure Sigma shit, bro. I can fucking relate to that. Personally, I found this fight a little bit easier than the Elder Mist fight. Once you realize Malcolmud is weak to physical and Rocky the salamander is weak to magic, you can just deal a lot of damage to either of them really fast. After the fight, the group talks with Malcolmud about going back to the village, which he doesn't want to do because the entire village just makes fun of him, but they manage to compromise with him when he agrees to stay in his hideout as long as he doesn't clog the wind tunnels. Once outside the mines, the group gives the good news to the village, but he also tells them to be nicer to the little guy or else it'll happen again. After all, this was a consequence of their own actions. But we're now free to take the lift on the south side of town to the Coral Cascades, a beautiful area filled with waterfalls and geysers. It wouldn't be an RPG if there wasn't a couple secrets hidden behind these waterfalls, and fellas, this is a fucking RPG. There are a couple new enemies, one being this fish man that traps you in a bubble and drops you, and the other being a crab with a spiky gem-encrusted shell. Once you get through the Coral Cascades, there's another fishing area, which is always welcome, but the area we're here for is the port town of Brisk. There have been these little signs that were guiding us to this town all through the Cascades, but now we're here. We're introduced to a band of pirates, all with crazy names, and the captain, who looks oddly familiar. The big black lady pirate Yolanda won't stop quipping about tropes that are in every RPG you've ever played, and we strike a deal with the band of pirates. If one of us can beat this scrawny little fuck in an arm wrestle, they'll take us to Wraith Island free of charge. If not, we have to grab something for them as payment. They tell us to meet them at the pub if we want to take them up on their offer. Before the arm wrestle starts, the anorexic pirate rips off his shirt and becomes fucking jacked like in that one episode of SpongeBob with the anchor arms.
Who are you expecting? Tiny Tim? Wait. Big Auntie.
He smashes Garl through the fucking table. The pirates then say we should have agreed on a no magic shirts policy before agreeing to the arm wrestle. What? Anyways, we've been suckered into getting this coin of the undead the captain wants so badly, so we head up north to the abandoned wizard's lab. I should note that this is as far as I made it when I first picked the game up. Everything past this point is completely blind for me. The lab acts as the next dungeon of the game, where you have a few puzzles to get through, once again involving 3 magical MacGuffins that you have to collect before facing the boss at the end. I really like the aesthetic of this dungeon though, with the void in the background swirling with these purple runes, paired up with the slow music. It really makes you feel like you're in an untapped catacomb. All throughout this dungeon are holes in the map that you can jump through that pop you out at different parts of the map, which I also found was really cool. The new enemies in this area are these sentry things that shoot laser balls at you, as well as a palette swap of the crabs from the Cascades. They also include the fishing minigame as part of solving the puzzle, and you guys already know how much I like my fishing minigames, so I don't need to say that much more. After you've grabbed the 3 crystals, the final room is just an endless void, with the treasure just up ahead. Once the group gets close to the treasure, the boss manifests into this biblically accurate angel thing. It's really cool. The boss also switches its weaknesses from physical to magical whenever it changes form, And just like any other boss, it can deal a lot of damage to your team if you don't time your blocks and complete the locks. Bars. Overall, this boss fight isn't too difficult, but was probably the most difficult one so far. After you get the coin, they agree to take you to Wraith Island. This whole time we've been led to believe this big ship they've been staring at the whole time was theirs, but their ship is actually this castaway looking raft that is literally just 7 logs tied together with a sail attached to it. On our way there, the crew lets us know that Wraith Island seems to have a curse laid on it. No one that's gone there has ever returned. What's more, the dweller that lives there will call one of the residents every day to feed on their life force. Along the way, the group also catches a glimpse of the Vespertine, the ghost ship from Legend. The pirate crew says one day they plan to claim the ship for themselves, so they don't have to ride around on what is possibly the most pathetic excuse for a boat I've ever seen. Either way, we make it to Wraith Island safely. The pirates tell us to meet them at the local pub when we arrive in town. Along the way, there are a couple new enemies. There are the classic zombie enemy, as well as these cute little jackalope things with hoods. These enemies pack a way harder punch than the other common enemies, and they also have the ability to heal themselves. The battle theme here also has a new spin to it. It's got a much more spooky feel to it to fit the atmosphere more. We make it to the town of Lucent, and everyone here is completely out of it. Nobody seems to care about anything at all. It's definitely one of the more gloomy places I've seen in recent games. But we head to the local pub, fittingly named the First Stage of Grief, and inside is this strange fella named Edgar. He's really sassy and doesn't believe anything the crew says upon their arrival, and when someone sitting at a table gets called by the dweller, he's just like, my, remember 10 seconds ago when absolutely nothing happened? I like this guy. He's a total creepy weirdo, but I like this guy. The crew aren't the type of people to just let that happen like the rest of the town though, so they head out of town to see if there is any way to stop the citizens from just walking off to their deaths. Interestingly enough though, the captain trails us saying it's time to improvise. Whatever that means. And we head to an area called the Cursed Woods. The new enemies in this area include these tree ghoul things with blue flames erupting from their stumps, as well as these plants with spiky vines blocking the path forward. Once you beat the plants though, the vines disappear and they allow you to progress forward. Once the crew makes it through the forest, they see the citizen on his way to the mansion where the dweller resides, but the magic pulling him is too powerful for them to stop. So the group decides to turn back, but it's not too long until the dweller sings again, this time grabbing Garl. But before he can walk through the gate, a portal opens up and the ninja girl from before jumps through and stabs him. I knew it! I double knew it! To be fair, I thought Garl was gonna get fully caught, but it's good that the ninja got him with the paralysis kunai jutsu. We now have to head back to Lucent with this girl in our party, and I ain't even mad about this. She's fucking cool. She's got these poison daggers and she uses her portals as special attacks to fly around like she's playing Portal 2. And she also just teleports behind enemies and hits them with the nothing personal kid. She's fucking sick, dude. I don't know what to say. So we make it back to Lucent and she tells us her name is Sarai and that there's a ferryman to the east of town that will give us a ride to the Necromancer's lair. The Necromancer is named Romaya, not to be confused with Moyara that we've been hearing about, and she holds a soul stone which can be used to break the hex laid on Garl. The ferryman wants a green flame in exchange for a ride over to the Necromancer's lair, but unfortunately we don't have one, so Sarai gives him the coin of the undead that we got for the pirates earlier, confirming to us that these are the same people, if for some reason you couldn't tell already. This area follows the basic dungeon structure of the game, get the 3 glowing hoo-haws and fight the boss at the end, but this one's a lot tougher than the last ones we've been to. The difficulty is really starting to curve, and I'm also just really bad at timing the attacks from the zombies and end up getting 2-shotted by them, so maybe it's just me. Before we get into the actual lair though, we have to face the guard, which is a mini-boss of sorts. He's the Duke from Lucent who's been resurrected to do Romaya's bidding for the rest of time. He says he used to live in the mansion that is now being occupied by the Dweller, but has no idea what became of the rest of his family after he died. His only focus is to do the bidding of the Necromancer now. He's a really cool mini-boss, and his music is awesome. His attacks are also really hard to time, and he deals out some massive damage. Honestly though, this fucking boss music, holy shit. After defeating him though, he pulls Zale aside and teaches him a new technique as a show of respect, and lets us pass. There are a couple new enemies in this dungeon, one being this ghoul type guy who can use a bunch of different spells at random, as well as a floating wizard dude. Another one is this big skeleton. This is what people mean when they say they are big boned. This boy is thick.
Damn, boy, he's thick. Boy, that's a thick ass boy. Damn.
This dungeon is also where you unlock another way of traversal and solving puzzles, and ladies and gentlemen, It's a grappling hook. We fucking did it. 10 out of 10. This game's a fucking masterpiece. Look at this shit. I'm fucking flying around, throwing it into enemies to deal extra damage before the fight. Oh my God. Sometimes I'm just walking around throwing this thing because it's satisfying. I'm moving at like half speed just so I can... So we get the grappling hook, get the 3 McGriddles, and are ready to take on Romaya. And her boss fight can actually be pretty difficult. She summons the thick-ass skeletons we were facing earlier in the dungeon, but I just put all my focus on Romaya, and she wasn't too much trouble. Also, her boss music is the standard boss theme that we've heard the last couple times, with a couple tweaks to it. But I gotta say, after hearing the Duke's theme, like I can definitely say Romaya got robbed here. The Duke's theme goes way harder. But we managed to take down Romaya and get the Soul Stone, and she tells us to piss off. But Sarai says we also need a green flame or else we can't get a ride back to Wraith Island. So she gives us one of them and says next time it won't be a 3 versus 1. But Zale notes that she was summoning skeleton guards, and Romaya hits us with the Fortnite Ninja top 10 moments before sending us out of her domain.
The fuck you say to me, you little shit?
Either way, we got the Soul Stone and the Green Flame, so we should be able to save Garl once we get back to Lucent. Once we get back into town, the crew is upstairs recovering when the Mentors and the Headmaster finally arrive. The time has come to cleanse the world of the last dweller and save the town from its curse. Sarai, aka the captain, leaves this mission up to us. But Garl tags along, so we still have a full party. So we head out to the mansion, and the Headmaster has it all planned out. Brewgraves and Erlina are tasked with clearing out the basement, and we are tasked with clearing out the ballroom and the garden. Inside the mansion are some new enemies, the main ones being these ballroom dancer spirits, but there are also these sentient books. One thing I've noticed is the enemies here have a lot more HP than in the previous dungeons, so this could be another indication that the difficulty is about to scale. One thing I guess I can note is that so far, I'm really enjoying the pacing of this game. It's been really non-stop between story beats. Nothing is drawn out for too long or overstays its welcome. And at no point have I felt like it's too difficult and I need to grind. But also, I'm not walking through the game like it's Pokemon or something. There's been a couple times where my party members have been KO'd and it's gotten pretty sketchy, but it's rewarding making it through those situations. Anyways, with that tangent aside, we get to the kitchen and this ghost is like, "You're not getting through here until you make me a sandwich. I want rust, dust, sugar, and Hepar in it," whatever the fuck Hepar is. And look, I know this is a sandwich for a ghost, but this gotta be looking like that fucking Krabby Patty Mr. Krabs and SpongeBob gave the health inspector in that one episode. Really? Two SpongeBob references in the same review? Why do I keep going back to SpongeBob? Anyways, we give the ghost its nasty patty and it lets us into the library and the ballroom. We solve a couple more puzzles. This time it's not the grab the 3 testicles puzzle, it's different and neat and cool, okay? The garden is a hedge maze with the same spiky vines from the forest blocking the way. We slash our way through the maze, and inside the greenhouse is this massive Venus flytrap from Little Shop of Horrors that managed to get way too big, and it wants to eat our asses. This fight's actually really cool. You gotta take out its arms before the head becomes vulnerable, and if you don't take the arms out quickly, they'll just sweep your team in 2 turns, because they do like 40 damage even when you block the hits, and there's 4 arms. I didn't lose the fight, but I definitely got my shit rocked. Solid boss fight. I refuse to call this thing a mini-boss. But after we beat Audrey II, we make our way back into the lobby, where the headmaster is ready to break the seal on the door leading to the dweller. He lets Garl know he's strictly forbidden from fighting the dweller because she's got a power level that would make Vegeta break his fucking scouter. The headmaster conjures a rune that summons the dweller of Ro and... Jesus Christ. This fight isn't actually difficult, like, at all in my opinion. I think it's more for spectacle. I had a tougher time fighting Mr. Plant in the greenhouse. She creates these mirror images, which really tweaked my eyes out with how fast they flash. And one thing I noticed is that the party is doing like 10 times the magical damage we usually do, but there's still not enough light from the eclipse shining into the room. So the headmaster sends Garl up to find a way to let more light in. Naturally, Garl's solution is to put dynamite into a fucking pressure cooker and blow the ceiling off the mansion. This causes the dweller to reveal its true form and... holy shit, look at that lock! Honestly, the way this thing kind of twitches around like a goddamn Twitcher from Dead Space kind of freaks me out a little bit. The pixel art in this game is top tier for sure. But we kick the dweller's ass and the headmaster tells our mentors to destroy its core before Sarai comes flying in through the portal, saying she won't let them. Erlina knocks Sarai away with her magic before setting a barrier between them and us, before the 4 guys that we saw watching us earlier come through a portal. These 4 masked dudes are worshippers of the Fleshmancer, and they've had a plan to steal the Dweller Core and turn the eclipse into a blood moon to resurrect the Dweller of Strife. and Erlina and Brewgraves have been in on their plan this whole time. Erlina and Brewgraves go off about how they want to control their own lives and how all of this training against their will hasn't gotten them anything, so it's time they follow their own path. They bring the blood moon upon us, and we see the entire town of Brisk wiped out as a result. The headmaster tasks us with checking on Brisk while he takes the time to recover and plan out how to get to the Fleshmancer's castle on Mesa Island. So we talk to the pirates, get on their makeshift raft that's ready to capsize any minute now, and head back to Brisk. Like we saw, the entire town has been reduced to a pile of rubble, and there are now demons harassing whoever managed to survive. So we run around the town saving the citizens before making a plan to get them to a safe place. The music here really encapsulates the urgency of the moment too, with this thumping bass and descending key progression that doesn't break when you get into battles. It gets a big ol' chef's kiss from me. Once you've saved whatever survivors remain, the pirates recommend sending them to a small island to the northeast for a fresh start. They say it should be safe from the demons, but there's just one problem. All the ships in the port were destroyed in the Cataclysm, and the one we've been using to go back and forth obviously isn't fit to ferry this many people. So the pirates devise a new plan. Take control of the Vespertine. Up on the ridge, looking over the Vespertine, Captain Cliché reveals... I just realized that. I just realized the name. Captain Cliché? Up on the ridge, looking over the Vespertine, Captain Cliché reveals to the group that she's been Sarai this whole time. But the group says they already knew, and I'm glad they didn't try to insult my intelligence by them being like, "No way, we had no idea! There's no possible scenario where I could have figured this out!" I'm usually pretty ignorant to the plot of games and when twists are coming. Like, I had no idea the mentors were gonna betray us like that, but I think this was a pretty easy one to figure out. Anyways, we board the Vespertine and grab the map of the open seas from the ship's cargo hold and bring it back to the navigator for him... her? I don't know, it doesn't matter, it's a fucking ghost. We can now navigate the open seas. You know the standard dungeon formula at this point, get the 3 bootin' snoots off the tootin' wootins and fight the boss at the end. It's surprising how many times they've gotten me to do this without it getting boring. A little repetitive, sure, but I'm still fully engaged. The new enemies in this dungeon are 2 types of skeleton pirates called Ranged Matey and Melee Matey. Real creative guys. I really liked the puzzles in this area though. One of them included getting these green coins from different areas on the map. One of them is stuck up in a tree that you have to knock loose. Then you gotta use your grappling hook to break the stones that are channeling the hex's magic. I don't know, I liked it, it was really cool. Once you make it to Stormcaller, he hits you with a bunch of pirate speak, and then this sick-ass boss music fades in. I never thought a fucking accordion would be cool, but this music really fucking slaps. Stormcaller has a couple attacks that will really rock your shit. He's got this Rasengan looking thing where he channels energy before sending it at your group that hits everyone, as well as this spectral slash move for a basic attack. But then, right when his back is against the wall, he jumps off the cliff you're fighting on and reappears with a big fucking water dragon. I really wish that was his second phase, but unfortunately that's just his ultimate attack. Still super cool regardless. But now the Vespertine is free from the curse and we are able to sail the seas to our heart's content. When we get back to Brisk, a few of the workers are already at work rebuilding the town. And it looks a lot better already, but there are still a ton of citizens who've been left with nothing, and we promised to find them a new home. So we board onto the Vespertine and set sail for new land. The villagers make quick work cutting down trees to make their houses, and a little township is born. A few days later, one of the villagers say they found a strange crypt while they were exploring, but they were too scared to investigate further. Makes sense after all they've been through, so the Solstice Warriors go and check it out. Inside is a little fella called the Crypt Walker whose flame has gone out, but he's friendly and lets us inside. Furthermore, he welcomes us to explore the depths of this crypt, which are filled with tombstones. Hundreds and thousands of tombstones. Hear me out. I'm not a patient enough guy to understand whether this is their way of putting the credits in the game. But there's no fucking way this many people worked on the game. This could be the entire family trees of everyone who worked on the game, plus some. I'm not sure. I'll come back and figure it out at some point. I talked to the Crypt Walker and he asked for codes, but I don't have any for him. Like I said, I didn't really pay attention while I was down there because it's fucking huge. But we report back to the town that there's nothing to worry about. The crypt is safe, and the little fella in there is happy that someone's inhabiting the island with them. And the entire town breathes a sigh of relief. They also group together to tell Garl they would like him to name their town for them after being such a great help for the past few days. Garl names the town Mirth, which I wasn't crazy about at first, but I can't lie, it's kind of growing on me. A few more days pass, and the group has a visitor. is the headmaster. They ask him if he has a plan, but he's lost all hope and resigns from his position as head of the Solstice Warriors. He gives us a coral hammer which can be used to get access to the people at the bottom of the lake on Watcher Island, and the key to the shrine on our home island, as well as the name of the giant that will throw us back there. Its name is Yeet. Fucking Yeet. But with that, we now have access to the open world. Also, you may be wondering who this guy is. His name is Bob. He used to be Gerard's NPC. Get fucked, loser. Before we head onto our ship, Hortense gives Sarai her ultimate move, the Vespertine Cannons, and I make a quick stop back to Evermist, where we grew up. I solved the puzzle inside the shrine because I'm a genius. Not actually, this took way longer than it should have. And get the combo skill Soonerang. I also visited Moon Cradle, but unfortunately there isn't much here. No big celebration or anything, just a couple rainbow conches and some chests I missed earlier. Either way, it was nice to visit home. We've made it to Watcher Island now, which is a beautiful tropical region with palm trees and flowing rivers. The music here is very subtle too, to reflect how untapped this place is. Just a drum in the background. It's very nice. The new enemies in this area are a big-ass frog with a shuriken on its back, these birds that do this goofy animation after you hit them, and a skeleton scorpion that honestly feel really out of place here, but they're cool nonetheless. Once you make it up the trail, a portal opens up and two of those masked Fleshmancer worshippers walk out of it. Oh shit, dude, I was not expecting this. Also, hold up, this fucking battle music. This shit go hard, bro. But these guys weren't too difficult. A pretty decent mini-boss type beat. I don't know. This one guy says the next time we meet will be the last time. Like we didn't just put him and his boy on pack watch in 5 turns. And they run away back through their portal. But now we're at the Coral Bell and we hit that shit with our hammer. This summons a bridge up to the building where the guy inside gives us a shell that will allow us to breathe underwater in order to get to the fishman in the village at the bottom of the lake. But first we gotta put it under some holy water from the Sacred Grove to activate it. So we head up to the Sacred Grove, solve a couple puzzles, and baptize our seashell, which lets us get sucked down whirlpools without having to worry about whirlpools being the deadliest thing on the fucking planet. We can also breathe underwater, so, I mean, thank you, Fishman. I don't know. So we go back to the lake and dive to the bottom to get to Dokari Village. This is where we can sell off our rainbow conches for building plans we can use to expand Mirth. I also walked into the inn, and how the fuck did you guys get here? Anyways, we enter the Temple of Tides, and the Oracle is like, damn, you guys really haven't done shit with your lives. The Elder Mist gave you your prophecies and you haven't even come close to fulfilling them. We're doomed. We're fucking doomed. I looked at every timeline and there isn't even one where we beat Thanos. I mean, the Dweller of Strife. But we're like, bro, we didn't come here for this black-pilled nonsense. Tell us how to move forward. He's just like, go through the waterfall, I guess. I just love how the writers made it so all these fucking old dudes just have no hope in the new generation. And they're like, fine, I give up, dog. Wrap it up. Just give in to evil. Anyways, we go past the waterfall, kill a couple schools of fish, and make it to the water temple. This is probably my favorite dungeon so far, and if you know me, I'm not usually a fan of water levels or dungeons, but this one's really cool. It's got an Ocarina of Time kind of vibe to it, where you're changing the water levels in each room to solve the puzzles. And right as I was saying, the collect the 3 items to fight the boss shtick was getting a little stale, they switched it up. Good on ya. You gotta turn valves and pull levers to change the water levels, to collect pearls hidden around the temple to get to the top. It's a really cool concept. Each floor had a cool puzzle. My favorite one was this one where you have to push yourself on this platform with the gauntlet you got from the mines and spin these fans to lower gates, and then you use your hook to get back. I'm into the puzzles that make you use all your resources you've got to this point. The new enemies are these shrimp knights that make water clones of one of your party members, and there's also Chaos from Sonic Adventure. This was the first dungeon that kicked my ass hard enough that I had to use healing items. It was actually a pretty good challenge. At one point I actually thought I was gonna lose. I had 2 members of my party that were downed, and Sarai had like 30 HP. Like one hit would have wiped me if I didn't time the block, but guess who fucking pulled through, baby? So we made it to the top of the tower, and the door is locked with no way in. And Garl is like, maybe we should just knock. Okay. Here's where writing the script as I go along with the game could either be seen as a good or a bad thing. So, there's been this guy named the Archivist, who has basically acted as the narrator to this story for the entire game. I haven't made any note of him up until this point. I really thought he was just some dude meant to recap the story at the end of each chapter. I said the game starts out with Zale and Valir on their way up to the Elder Mist, but that wasn't true. The actual first scene of the game is of this dude in his big-ass library, and every few hours of gameplay, whenever we would move on to a new part of the story, he'd be like, oh, there goes our heroes on to the next part of their journey. The game cuts to him saying, yep, This is the end of their story. The Dweller of Strife is resurrected, and everyone died because the door remained firmly shut with no way to open it. But how far could they have gotten should fate be given a nudge and the door were to open? And that's when we hear the knocks. We're at the Grand Archives. The mysterious character that's been narrating our story this whole time wasn't just a narrator. He's the immortal alchemist named Reshan, the one the Solstice Warriors have been working for over centuries. He says, although he's been willing to nudge fate towards hope, he can't take matters into his own hands. Or his counterpart, Aephorul, will come back to this world. Aephorul is the Fleshmancer, but he is willing to help us help ourselves. And if we can do that, we might have a fighting chance against the Dweller of Strife. He conjures a portal to a remote location, and he says at the top of this mountain lies an artifact that will reveal itself if letting us into the archives was the right thing to do. He adds that if we manage to retrieve the artifact, he will aid us on our journey. So with seemingly no other option, we choose to jump through the portal. What a cool plot twist, man. That shit got me so motivated to keep going. So we're headed up this mountain passage with this sick-ass motivational music going on in the background, interspersed with like these bird shrieks echoing in the distance. The atmosphere of this level is so cool, man. I don't even know how to describe it. It's just like, yeah, man, let's fucking go. We've got hope. The new enemies in this area are these little Galarian Darumaka looking guys and these DJ ice golems that are using ice pillars like turntables. As I was climbing up the mountain, I interrupted these guys having a dance party and I felt kind of bad. I'm sorry guys, you're a threat to my safety. There's also a fight underneath a sheet of ice that I thought was really cool, but it really messed with my depth perception. Still really cool though. Past the underground area is a fight with the other two masked dudes, and you know we had to put them on pack watch too. They definitely had more synergy than the others though, not necessarily a more difficult fight. I actually think I beat these guys faster than the other ones, but this one was more entertaining for sure. Just like the others, they're like, oh, you got lucky, we'll get you next time, and they run off. After defeating them, we finally make it to the artifact we were looking for. The artifact is the Solstice Amulet, which gives us the power to control time without needing to stand on those plates, which I might add have been all over this area, but all of them have been broken. So boom, we solve a few more puzzles in order to get back down to our portal, grab some loot on the way, and return to Reshan. So we get back to him, and we're like, all right, man, you think you can help us get to Mesa Island now? And he's like, where do you think I just sent you, dude? Fuck, this dude is so cool. He's got one more thing for us to do before we can head out. He needs us to grab the Vial of Time for him, which has been hidden away in Torment Peak, where another dweller lays dormant. We have to prepare for another cleansing, this time without the help of our mentors, or the headmaster. This will be our most difficult challenge yet. Torment Peak is said to destroy the mental state of whoever goes near it, but he's concocted a potion that should alleviate the damage. Using our new powers, we unlock entrance to this cave and begin our journey into Torment Peak. This is a really ominous place filled with darkness and next to no background music, except for an unsettling hum faded in the background. It's actually kind of hard to see where you're going, or where some of the enemies in this dungeon are hidden. The new enemies in this dungeon are this dual-headed flesh monster with glowing purple eyes that are completely immune to physical damage, these skeleton monsters with massive HP pools that summon shields for their allies, and these piles of bile and flesh that just remind me of whenever someone would try to revive a human in Full Metal Alchemist. I feel like I might have missed a lot in this dungeon due to how dark it was, but I did manage to make it through regardless. Once you make it through the passage, there are a bunch of baby gorillas with baboon butts hiding in the ground. They tell us that their mom is trapped down below them, and just like the citizens of Lucent, every once in a while one of the baby gorillas will wander off, only to be food for the dweller. They also say one just left not too long ago, and we might be able to save him if we're fast. So we head down to investigate. Speaking with the mother, who'd been bound with vines, conjured by the Fleshmancer, so her babies stay close, she says that the Solstice Warriors that were last here were unsuccessful in their last attempt to cleanse the dweller. And when they left to get reinforcements, they were so filled with dread from this place that they lost their memory. So the door was sealed and never reopened until our arrival. We are prepared to take on the dweller, but we're so deep in this cave that there's no way that light from an eclipse can reach this point. The dweller is going to be completely immune to all of our attacks. But Sarai says she's got a plan, and to head into the fight as she jumps through a portal. We jump through the whirlpool into the next room where we find the baby gorilla that got taken. We got there just in time to stop the dweller from getting him. But out from the void jumps this massive, flaming, zombified gorilla demon, completely immune to all of our attacks. pounding at the ground using so much force that it shakes the screen. But it's not too long until Sarai returns, carving out a massive portal, exposing it to the night sky. The light from the eclipse is hitting the dweller, leaving it susceptible to our attacks. But this is still no easy fight. Each arm has thousands of HP, and in order to deal significant damage to the head, you have to take them out. I had to pull out all the stops in this fight. MP management, swapping between my party members, as well as Sarai's ultimate attack. This was a badass boss fight, and I finished it in the most fitting way possible. We took out the arms, and the two Solstice Warriors teamed up for one final Solstice strike, cleansing the dweller from this world. With the world cleansed from another dweller, and the gorilla matriarch finally free from captivity, she opens the way to the mossy cache, and with one more puzzle, the Vial of Time reveals itself, and we're ready to head back to Reshan one last time. We hop through the portal and Reshan gives us his thanks, also saying he'd like to join us for the rest of our travels. The final team member of this game is the immortal alchemist himself, and with that, our next objective is Mesa Island. We make a straight shot to the island and begin the hike up. It's a long hike with multiple biomes, and as you'd expect, the enemies on this island are much stronger than the ones on the previous islands. In this autumn-themed level, there are these dagger-wielding beetles, as well as these big chestnut-looking robots. Both of these enemies have a ton of defense, so it's tough to deal significant damage to them. There were a couple battles in this section that actually got me to a point where I thought I might lose. But you know me, I'm a fucking boss, I never lose. There are these massive trees that you jump across to progress through the area, and they have these maple syrup reserves at the bottom that are used as ingredients for cooking. The puzzles also involve everything you've learned up to this point, which I really appreciate. There are these posts that you can push around at different spots with your gauntlet, and then use your hook to throw yourselves onto platforms built in the trees. There are whirlpools that you use to get to different areas, as well as a few spots that require a specific time of day for progression. At the end of the level, there's a massive climb up a cliff where the camera pans out to see the castle behind you. I really liked this little detail. It really made me feel like our goal was getting close. You get to this door and there's this strolling minstrel who says this riddle before peacing out, and you have to push all these leaves into a pile before it creates this leaf and twig mini boss. He can actually be a bit of a challenge because he doesn't take any damage while he has this leaf armor around him, but otherwise he's not too difficult. The way he explodes once you defeat him is crazy though. It's super dramatic. It reminds me of like Earthbound. But after the party runs off, Rugraves pops out from the trees, and you enter a flashback sequence to when our old mentors were children, waiting for the headmaster to return from the cleansing of the Dweller of Strife. But the headmaster returns completely maimed, with no other survivors. We cut to the kids doing their training, where Rugraves is struggling to keep up with Erlina. The headmaster is really hard on him for not progressing fast enough, and Erlina stands up for him. The kids, then fed up with their headmaster's grueling training regimen, decide to run away. But they don't get far before getting cold and hungry, so they turn back to Mooncradle. We cut back to the Solstice Festivals later that year, and see the Great Eagle deliver Zale and Valir to the small town. And we cut a few years later again to the start of the game we played through when Zale and Valir were kids. But this time, we get to see where the mentors went to after Zale and Valir went back to their hideout. Turns out, they went to meet with the Acolytes, who have struck a deal with them. They've promised them a way out of the life of a Solstice Warrior, so long as they conjure up a blood moon for them to resurrect the Dweller of Strife. Brugraves is morally torn about following through. He knows this plan means essentially leaving Zale and Valir to die, but Erlina reminds them that either way, the world is doomed because the Dweller that continues to gain power at Torment Peak will eventually become a World Eater anyways. Then we cut back to current time, where Brugraves is just hoping that we understand before fading back to our perspective for the next level. Songshroom Marsh is this brown swampy level with these massive mushrooms that actually start singing when certain parts of the music chime in. I love this little detail, and this choir of mushrooms chanting along adds so much to the music. The only word I can think of to describe it is epic. I know I've been glazing the soundtrack a lot throughout this video, but it's a really good OST. One of the best I've heard in years for sure. And this is one of the ones that includes the environment in a really creative way. It was really immersive. The enemies in this area are these mushroom warriors with massive defenses, as well as these mushroom turtles that swing their necks around in a really goofy way. I really like these silly dudes. The puzzles in this level are also really cool. They involve changing the time of day to get certain mushrooms to react. Some of them activate at night and spring you across large gaps, and others react when you shine light on them to elevate you to other platforms. Further into the marsh is an old hermit
Her name is Yomara, the third of the three sisters, and one of the seers. As she passes Rishon, she notices who he is, and invites us all inside her house. Once inside, she reads Rishon his prophecy, which says he'll meet the dead of a forgotten race, and to be welcoming, because that's the key to achieving the alchemy that's long eluded him. Living glass, whatever that is. She also gives us the key to her gate, which allows us to advance, and we're sent on our way towards the end of the level. We finally made it to the castle, and at the door we are greeted by Brugraves and Erlina, bound by oath not to let us interfere with the Acolyte's ritual. This is it. The mentors versus the students. The other members of the party stand by. This is a true 2v2 fight. Brugraves and Erlina use the same moves that they used in the fight against the Dweller of Woe. Brugraves is more physical and Erlina is more magical focused. The music in this fight is pretty somber as well, to indicate that none of these people really want to be doing this. No one wants to have to take their mentor out in battle, and no mentor wants to have to turn on their student. After the battle, Brugraves even says it's not too late to join them, but he's quickly brushed off by the Solstice Warriors, and the two flee back into the castle. The enemies in this castle are all clock themed. There are these torsos with big clock heads, and these demonic looking cuckoo clocks. The dungeon is also filled with block puzzles, which, like I said before, I'm a pretty big fan of. At the halfway point in this dungeon, there are these kids working on gadgets. Well, I mean, they're kind of kids. The leader of this group, Kale, tells us that because the way time works in this dungeon, the people in this tower cannot die of natural causes. But if they were to ever step off the castle grounds, time would instantly catch up with them, and they would pass away instantly. We tell Kale that we're Solstice Warriors here to face the Acolytes, to which they ask us to touch the crystal on this pedestal next to him, which breaks a hole in the wall that was previously clogged. This crystal has catalyzed eclipse magic inside it, which activates when touched by someone who can manipulate it. He then says at the top of the clock tower is a man with the master key, and if we get the key, we can unlock the door to the room where the Acolytes are. To get up the clock tower, you need to solve more sliding block puzzles, but these puzzles have timers on them, as well as fighting the odd clock-themed monster along the way. In order to activate the levers that bring you to higher floors are these screws that you shoot your hook at to unscrew in a really satisfying way. Go up a couple floors and boom, you're at the top of the clock tower. There's a watchmaker at the top of the tower who seems completely indifferent about everything. He says he doesn't want to take part in any conflicts that we may have with the Acolytes. Just then, all the clocks go off, knocking the master key from where it was hidden. He's so nonchalant. He's just like, huh, quite peculiar that the key you were looking for would fall in front of you just as you were asking for it. I guess nobody in this place really likes working for the Acolytes, or even really wants to for that matter. Which, I mean, they are the bad guys, but I thought there would be a little bit more resistance. Anyways, we take the key and go back to Kale, who's just finished his contraption thing. And he's like, don't worry, we'll sneak this thing past the Acolytes without them noticing. But when we go up to their lair, they're just following right behind us in plain sight. And the leader of the Acolytes is like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Get back into your lab. But we're like, nah dude, you got bigger things to focus on right now. It's time to beat the brakes off all four of you. So the sick ass fight music chimes in and we do just that. As you'd expect, the fight against all four of them is a little more difficult than the fight against just two of them. I actually had to use a couple healing spells here. This is also the first time I used Rishon's ultimate move, and dude, I popped off when I found out he was the Great Eagle. Also, this move is overpowered as hell, dude. A full heal and massive damage across the board is unreal. The Dweller of Strife is reawakened after this fight, and we run after it out to the bridge. Zale and Valir summon the Eclipse, and this shit looks so fucking cool, man. But they head across the bridge and up to the top of the last tower, where the workers have set up this massive Eclipse cannon that they say will activate when we've used enough energy. The Dweller of Strife comes down from the skies, and it's this massive glowing eyeball with bat wings. Surprisingly enough, it doesn't do as much damage to the team as I thought it would, but after a few shots from the cannon, it attacks the tower, sending the party tumbling to the ground. With the weapon destroyed, it seems hopeless. The party pleads with Rishon to help them, but he had terms, and one of them was that he couldn't interfere with the Dwellers. But then, Sarai snatches the Vial of Time from Rishon and throws it at the Dweller. This summons the Fleshmancer to this world. He asks the Acolytes how they could have survived this long if they had stepped foot outside the castle, to which they respond, they've used the Vampire Rose. Whatever that is. He opens a portal and commands the Acolytes through, saying they will be merged with the Dweller on the other side to create something truly unstoppable. He then thanks Brugraves and Erlina for their help resurrecting the Dweller of Strife, and says he will grant them their wish once they step to the other side. Erlina wishes to become the most powerful sorceress, but Brugraves, clearly still morally torn, just wishes to forget about everything he's done, and never wants to fight the Solstice Warriors again. The Fleshmancer then says an eye for an eye, and fires a blast at the Solstice Warriors, but fucking Garl pushes them aside and takes the blast for himself. For fuck's sakes, Garl, you were supposed to know your limits. But right before the blast can hit Garl, Roshan snaps and stops time, putting him and the Fleshmancer in limbo. The two immortals talk about the situation they've put themselves in, their differences, their beliefs, before Roshan snaps time back. This awakens something in Zale, similar to when he almost lost Garl to the Dweller of Woe's song. The Elder Mist calls to him, saying there's something Garl has to see before he passes, and Zale flies off. The Fleshmancer goes back to his dimension through his portal, and the rest of our group meets back up where we first met the Elder Mist. Garl is fading fast, laying in the Elder Mist's pool, where he was first read his prophecy. When he has a vision of what we have to do to make it to the Fleshmancer, his time is almost up, when he has one last vision, the prophecy he was given by the Dokari Elder. Just then, he asks for a flask of borrowed time from Reshan. It works, but he's still fading. He knows what has to be done, but he knows he doesn't have much time left on this world. The Solstice Warriors are taking this hard, but Reshan tells them the only thing that will extend his time right now is to do what Garl saw in his vision. And the first step is getting to the shrine to the south of Mesa Island. So the group heads out with Garl one last time. We run up to the Skyward Shrine Bridge, but there's no way to reach it. But just then, Valir remembers the prophecies the Elder Mist and the Oracle of Tides read to her and awakens her power, mending the connection between the two islands on a path of water. Now, in the Cloud Kingdom filled with giants, the group needs to find the Council in the Sky in order to secure passage through the Sea of Stars. You see that? They did the thing where they make the title of the game an important part of the plot. Anyways, Garl talks to these literal gods about how he wants them to give us access as a parting wish. They ask someone to vouch for him, and Reshan chimes in. They ask Reshan if we have the key, to which he responds that we've reclaimed the Vespertine. They ask him if we have the strength, and he replies that Solon and Luana have awoken inside us. They ask if we have the will, and Reshan calls up Sarai, and the counselors are like, whoa, how did she get up here? And immediately deem us worthy. Alright, who the fuck is this girl? The council asks Garl what he's going to offer in exchange for his friend's passage through the Sea of Stars. And Garl says he's going to wake up the sleeping dragon on Evermist Island. To which the council is like, dude, that's going to end the world. What makes you believe this is a good idea? But Garl is like, no dude, this is my prophecy. I'm going to complete the ritual of the elements and cook bread for this big apocalypse dragon. No one can be angry when they wake up to the smell of bread. And the gods are like, all right, sounds like a good plan, I guess. I see no possible scenario where this goes wrong. So now we've got to collect the 4 elemental majiggers to combine them all into a loaf of bread that can achieve the avatar state.
Water. Earth. Fire.
Bread. So the group splits up, and Reshan literally splits apart so he can accompany everyone at once. First up is Zale. He's in charge of the wind, and we gotta head into the Skylands to capture the Zephyr in a bottle, but it's trapped inside a big-ass crystal. So we solve a couple laser puzzles and fly through some wind tunnels to get to the top of the Highlands. The enemies in this area are these electric snake things that I couldn't properly time out their hits no matter what I tried, and these weird-looking bunny things that shot pebbles at you with a slingshot. We grabbed a couple of these crystal things which activated new wind tunnels, solved some more laser puzzles, and before we knew it, we were at the top. Reshan uses his magic to infuse the coral hammer we got earlier with the crystal at the top of the Highlands into the cobalt hammer, which gives us the power to break the crystal holding the Zephyr. He then traps the Zephyr in the Vial of Time, and with that, Zale is ready to return to Garl. Sarai's mission is more straightforward. She just has to fight the sea dragon that the Stormcaller summoned for his ultimate move. This fight can be a little tricky because its tail will counterattack you whenever you hit the head, but if you don't attack the head for a couple turns, it's gonna deal some serious damage to you. So you kinda just have to eat the counterattacks from the tail and focus on the head as much as possible. Or at least that's what I did, and it worked for me. But after the fight, you get one of the Hydrolion scales, which is what we needed for the water element, and with that, Sarai has done her part. Back in Malcolmud's hideout, Garl is talking over his plans with him, and he's swayed pretty easily because of how much Garl has helped him out with his outlook on life earlier. So that takes care of the earth portion easy as pie. Meanwhile, Valere is spelunking through a volcano, and this level is really cool. You solve these puzzles by pushing boulders downhill and launching them through Earth's crust. This is probably the toughest level to get through in my opinion, but I also thought the puzzles were the best here, so there's the trade-off. The music in this level also reminded me of the supersonic racing track from Sonic R. The vibes are completely different, but it has this one section that's like the same melody, and I kept laughing whenever I heard it. The boss from this area is this big-ass volcano frog that keeps burping and summoning these fucking demons out of the lava, and all they do is bury themselves in the ground and suicide bomb you. Dude, fucking stop! But he gets wrecked when Rashawn transforms into a fucking eagle and carpet bombs him like the US Air Force. Get wrecked, you stupid fucking frog. This is my volcano now, bitch. Alright, time to make some avatar bread before our best friend fucking dies. The group is reminiscing while it bakes about how Garl somehow managed to get a jar of cookies up to the academy while the Solstice Warriors were away training, and just as the bread finishes, they send the Zephyr out with the scent of freshly baked bread to wake up the sleeper. The plan worked, and the sleeper's tormented soul has been soothed. The sleeper asks Garl to give him a new name because he feels like the previous one he had represented his anger, and he wants to turn over a new leaf and dedicate his life to helping people. Garl names the old dragon Wentworth and asks for one more thing, knowing his time is almost up. For the dragon to fly them all to Moon Cradle so he can be buried in his hometown by the old celestial willow tree. With his final words, he thanks Zale and Valere for being his best friends, and he says to keep cooking, just like he taught them, and falls to an eternal slumber. God damn. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't holding back tears. I had grown pretty attached to Garl through the 20 or so hours I had been playing this game, and for him to sacrifice himself like that? Damn, bro. Goodbye, Garl. Rest in peace. Weeks of grieving go by. The Solstice Warriors, now prepared to journey forth into the Sea of Stars, go back to the kingdom in the sky to register themselves with the Council. And once that's finished, a massive whirlpool appears in the middle of the ocean by the 4 sunken giants. We are dismissed by the Council and are officially on our way across the Sea of Stars. Located at the center of the Earth is an endless void of stars. A sea, if you will, and sailing out into the depths are these portals that launch the Vespertine at light speed towards a massive black hole. So fast that the game goes 3D for like 30 seconds. This scene is so weird, but really cool at the same time, but also like completely out of place. That being said, I also do really like this scene. I just think it's really atmospheric. At the other side is a room with no light at all, and at the other end of the room is a terminal. When activated, the lights flash on, sirens blaring, intruder alert, and out comes a massive mecha guardian designed to eliminate any extraterrestrial life. The boss music kicks in with a slick futuristic spin on it, and holy shit, this is actually the best song in the soundtrack I've heard so far. This shit is so fucking good. Had me dancing around my room like a Fortnite kid who drank too much Capri Sun. Good God, this has to be my favorite song from a game in 2023. I cannot get over it. After the Guardian fight, Sarai steps forward and reveals to us who she really is. She takes off her mask and reveals she's really a cyborg. She tells us she needs our help and that her people fell to the Fleshmancer long ago. This place, and presumably where the Fleshmancer took his henchmen to through his portal, is her world. The Fleshmancer has set up a base that produces permanent clouds in order to block out the sun, and he sunk the moon into the ocean. He also created a catalyst, an evil sentient machine that was responsible for turning all of Sarai's people into cyborgs. Sarai asks us for our help, and of course we oblige. She's helped us so much on our journey so far. It would only be right to. So we make our way to Sarai's town of Rapine. In order to get to Rapine, we have to get through a factory that's been abandoned, but the security systems are all still active. We crash through the glass ceiling and begin our journey through. The music in this area is this low techno bass swelling beneath this basic kick, and then this synth melody comes in, and God is it clean, man. I will say though, I'm not too into this version of the battle music. it's just a little too tinny for my taste compared to the other one. The enemies in this area are all robotic as you'd expect. There are basic turrets as well as these horse mech things that neigh as an audio cue for when to block. The puzzle in this dungeon involves using a crane to move the teleporter to different parts of the factory so you can get these kyber mesh parts needed to bring power back to the elevator to bring you to the exit. It's a pretty straightforward puzzle, but I definitely got stuck on this part for way longer than I want to admit. But we get to Rapine, and if you thought the town of Lucent was dreary, well, this town is just fucking depressing. None of these people have any will to live. Cursed with immortality, their souls are bound to robotic bodies to forever live in this world where the sun doesn't rise and the moon doesn't shine. Inside Sarai's house is a massive terminal with a Jarvis-like AI she calls Cedric, who gives us our next mission: brave the Cerulean Expanse to find the dead of a forgotten race and take down the Dweller of Dread. Cedric calibrates a probe that will help us get through the Expanse, and with our lead, we head out for the next step of the mission. The Cerulean Expanse is a massive desert, as the name suggests, with a similar mechanic to something like the Lost Woods, where you use this probe to dig up these pedestals that indicate the direction you need to go in order to move forward. The probe could also dig up things like food as well as enemies, but I actually managed to get through the maze pretty quickly, and I made it to the end without much trouble. At the other side of the Expanse is a laboratory, built by the Fleshmancer that was used to harvest spirits. The lab has been sealed shut for hundreds of years, seemingly abandoned, but Rashan, realizing that this was his prophecy, uses the Vial of Time to dispel the concealment curse, revealing the spirits that still reside near the premises. One of the spirits recognizes us as Solstice Warriors. He goes by Beast, and he wants to help us on our journey. However, the spirits can't leave the dome surrounding the lab because of the Fleshmancer's curse.
He says he knows how to get to the skybase, though. An ancient battery at the top of the sacrosanct spires, held by a titan they've named, Estristre. Sarai chimes in, saying the spires have been sealed away. Luckily enough, Beast knows how to break the seal as well, and says he can get us in, provided we find a way to get him past the dome. The only way to do this is for Rashan to create living glass. But Beast is as eager to help bring an end to the Fleshmancer's curse on this world as anyone else, so he agrees to the experiment. Sarai uses the probe to contact Cedric, who unlocks the door to the laboratory. And inside is this big-ass Medusa head security measure thing. I won't lie, man, this thing's kinda freaky. Its face starts peeling off as you do damage to it, and it's got these tentacles that plug into vials of different colored liquid that indicate what it's gonna do on its next attack. This was also the first fight that I used Zale's ultimate attack, and look at this anime-ass cutscene, dude. This shit's hardcore. I could definitely see this boss giving some people a really tough time if you aren't a fucking god like me. I actually couldn't think of a strategy while fighting this guy. He wasn't really kicking my ass or anything, but it was one of those fights where I really just felt like nothing I did was very effective. Which, don't get me wrong, is a good thing for a boss fight. But the Medusa guy goes down, and we make it to the lab to make the living glass. It all works out great, and look at this guy. He's such a friend. How could you not love him? So Beast joins our party, and we head northwest to the Sacrosanct Spires. Once there, Beast uses Songster magic to break the seal, which catches the attention of Rashan. Apparently this is a super ancient form of magic that predates even the Immortal Alchemist. Before we enter the spire, Beast says something about the origins of the cultist who lives inside, but Sarai quickly chimes in and says we can handle it, and we head inside. We're met almost immediately by these avian cultists, which really get my gears spinning about the Great Eagle. What's going on here? And now I'm kind of suspicious as to why Sarai chimed in so fast. Does she know something about this? Either way, we keep heading up to this level, which is almost completely vertical, which is a cool little detail considering we're fighting bird people. Speaking of the fights, I could not time out these guys' hits to save my life, dude. I was lucky these guys didn't do too much damage because I would have been screwed if they did. Another detail I like, not about the world, but about Beast's design, is that when he's moving around the world, he's like morphing into different shapes. Like when he's walking on a tightrope, he turns into a wheel, and when he's climbing up a wall, he turns into like this slug thing. I don't know, I found it cool. I like Beast. We get to the top of the tower, and the camera pans up to this bird sentinel watching over us, and he reports back to his council on how the seal has been broken and there are intruders coming up to usurp them of their positions. This duck guy is like, well, I can take care of them, so no problem, and heads off. Okay. So, all of these guys in the council are relatively bird-like, right? There's this hawk-looking guy that was watching over us. There's this duck dude that was just sent off to deal with us. But why is this guy, who's like the leader of the three, like this cat bird hybrid thing? Is it because cats eat birds? I don't understand. Anyways, we're in this forest zone now, and we just walk into the duck dude's trap because at this point I've been so conditioned to just walking up and pulling levers. He's like, wow, you must be really fucking stupid to fall for that trap, hey? And I'm like, you didn't have to say it like that. I already feel bad about myself for falling for it because the scene right before this, you were saying you were gonna come deal with us. Like, I knew this was coming. Why wasn't I thinking? Then the floor caves in and we fucking die. Game over. Been a good one. Just kidding. Obviously we get out. Do you think the fucking chosen one would die like this? Come on. Alright, I'm like 38 pages deep into this script. Can you tell I've been slowly losing my mind? So we're in this underground temple and we literally fall for the same trap a second time trying to free this other bird guy. But Sarai uses her cyborg computer brain to jump out of the way in time. And then she uses her cyborg computer brain to solve this super difficult memory puzzle. So now that we're free from our test tube, this bird guy named Verlo is like, thanks guys, but I gotta go. This place is fucking whack. And he summons a wind tunnel so we can escape as well and dips out. So now we're actually at the spire for real this time. And there's this bigger memory puzzle that activates a ladder and a ball puzzle. You break through the floor with this big fucking heavy ball and grab a crystal egg from a chest, put it in the doohickey and fly up to where the bird council is for real. It turns out these bird guys worship the fucking battery we're trying to get to as like their god or something. And when we're like, we don't want to replace you guys on top of this perch thing, we just want to go turn the battery on, they're like, that is literally the worst thing you could have said to me. All of these guys function a little differently, but honestly, the fight didn't really last long enough for me to see what each of them did. I fucking vaporized these guys, man. Like, literally. But before the cat bird guy dies, he's like, Great Eagle, this is what you do to thank us after all we've given you? And Rashawn is like, what the fuck is Blood waffling about? And the cat bird is like, we gave you the ability to fly, and you come back here and kill us, bro? That shit's more evil than your partner. And then boom, we're hit with another flashback. Turns out, Aephorol was the one who gave Rashawn the ability to become the Great Eagle as a birthday gift. And Aephorol kept how he got the power to change Rashawn a secret. Turns out it was by stealing a bunch of these guys' fucking souls, dude. Learning this obviously hurts Rashawn, and the fucking catbird is like, glad to know you're immortal then, hope you suffer for eternity, and he fucking dies. Bro, that was cold. Anyway, Rashawn's like, nah, alright guys, I'm out. I can't do this shit anymore, and he fucking goes through a portal. But the team is like, dude, you're pretty OP. We kinda need you. So Rashawn snaps a puppet of himself into existence to take his place. Honestly, I kinda wish they just wrote him out, because the fact that we can still use all of his powers and stuff, but he's just not a speaking member of the party anymore, is kinda lame in my opinion. Personally, I stopped using him at this point unless he was really needed in a fight, because I stand on business, bro. If you're gonna fucking leave, then leave. You feel me? Anyways, we made it to this big old battery and Beast hits the thing with a fucking people's elbow and it activates the speedball network. Next stop, fucking Skybase, baby. The Skybase is a big-ass space station with a bunch of robotic dudes guarding the place. There are these floating guys with big-ass arms and these Half-Life face-hugger robots. The premise of this dungeon is pretty similar to the first factory we went to, but the goal is to use teleporters to get to different terminals that activate elevators to take you higher into space. The background in this dungeon is really cool as well. Once you get higher up, you can see the clouds swirling around the whole world, and space is like this really pretty orange to blue gradient. But we make it to the final terminals where you're controlling this pod, moving to different arms in the skybase, and at the end of the dungeon is the catalyst, the machine that was used to turn everyone in Sarai's town into cyborgs. The security measures activate, and we have to blast through the walls of the skybase itself in order to get to the catalyst. Each wall has different modules you have to break in order to get through the wall. Some of them shoot bullets, some of them shoot lasers, and some repair the other units. I was always sure to disable the repair units before taking out the other modules, but even then it was still a pretty tough fight. When you make it to the catalyst itself, there are 6 modules that sink into the floor once you destroy them all, and they self-repair. Moves like Valir's Moon Meringue were my best friend in this fight. The damage output of this attack was enough a lot of the time to take out multiple of these modules at once. Then we were able to focus our attack on the catalyst center console. After we defeat the catalyst, Sarai regains her memories of her people being fed into the catalyst by someone called the Soul Curator. She tries to stop the skybase from producing clouds and blocking the sun, but the terminal is encrypted and no one is able to use it. Not even Cedric knows what to do. But all is not lost. Out pops an AI core from the machine, and although it can't necessarily help with decrypting the terminal, we remember Kale from the Clockwork Tower being an incredible scientist, so we head back to our home world to ask him if he can help. After we fill Kale in on all the details of what's happened, he has an idea, but it'll take a couple days for him to finish preparations on his plan. The Solstice Warriors take this time to visit some people we haven't seen in a while back in Mirth, as well as an old friend in Mooncradle. A few days have passed, and Kale's project has been finished. He's created his own catalyst and plans on putting his own conscience into a cyborg, so he can leave the castle without dying instantly. All the other kids that have been immortalized and locked in the castle want to jump in as well, so they literally upload all 5 of their consciences into this one robot, making this supercomputer-ass cyborg made out of autistic children. It's fucking hilarious. After a while of them all fighting over who gets to be the speaker, they all settle on the name the Artificer. I think that's how you pronounce the name. Either way, their plan works perfectly, and they can leave the castle without dying of old age as soon as they step off the property now. So the group heads back to the sky base to try and decrypt the final terminal and disable the evil fucking cloud machine, which isn't a problem for these guys because, like I said earlier, autistic supercomputer. These guys are literal superhumans who are smarter than gods. Alright, time to find the sunken moon and take on the Dweller of Dread. The moon has been sunken in an area called the Infinite Abyss, and it's a straight shot down before the Dweller attacks. No puzzles or anything, just straight to business. A couple of its freaky kraken tentacles rise up from the depths before we get down there, but it's not long before we've sunk into the bottom of the abyss and the Dweller of Dread shows itself. The Dweller is like this cuttlefish kraken hybrid thing with tentacles that shoot barbs at you and snatch up one of your party members. It also has a big mouth that swallows your whole party and fucking inks up the whole place. This was a pretty tough boss fight, dude. It wasn't at the point where I thought I was gonna lose, but this guy knocked a couple of my party members down a couple times, and I was like, oh shit, bro. I did the whole gamer lean thing so I could time my hits and blocks properly. Dude, this was a good fight. But we took down the Dweller, and right before these guys said it, I was like, wait, dude, there wasn't an eclipse overhead. And Zale and Valir are like, I'm in control of the power I felt when Garl got hit from the blast and fucking died earlier. And they lift the moon out of the ocean, saving the world. Well, almost. There's still one more thing we have to take care of. The Fleshmancer. We head straight to the castle and storm in. And the doors are open, almost like he was expecting us to be here and wants us to come up to him. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I thought it was gonna be like a straight shot up there, kind of like the Dweller of Dread, but it's not. It's a massive dungeon that pulls out all the stops. And this has by far the hardest enemies in the game. We got sliding block puzzles, boulder puzzles, well, I mean, eye puzzles. This guy is not messing around in here. The enemies in this dungeon are just more difficult versions of the ones in Romaya's graveyard and from when Brisk got dunked on. So there's not much to say on that front other than every time I have to deal with one of these sleuths that don't take physical damage, I want to pull my balls off my body. They're not actually that hard. I need to chill. We make it up to this lab where a mad scientist confronts us and he's like, no storming the castle on my watch, and he pulls out a chainsaw like the fucking president of Argentina. After a couple turns, he drinks the potion that turns Scrappy-Doo into that big fucking abomination in the Mystery Island movie. You all know what I'm talking about. And he hits us with the Phase 2 shenanigans. Anyways, after you beat him, he's like, you're strong physically, but the Halls of Illusion are gonna mess you up, dog. No way your minds can handle it. Just you wait. Did the fucking Frankenstein monster just call me stupid, dude? There's no fucking way. So we make our way up this big winding staircase, fight a couple more enemies, and enter this big floating island area with green grass and happy ethereal music, and everyone in the party is like, come on Zale, time for bed, go to sleep, dude. And it says the fire is cold and dreadful. You know, like fire typically is. And then we visit the caves where the mole people were, and this mole dude is like, fucking get to work, bro. Hit the mines, and then we pass out again, and we wake up in the pub in Brisk, and there's all these epileptic villagers, and the lady at the bar is like, hey, you, time to work. Deliver the food to the people who aren't having grand mal seizures yet. And then we pass out again, and then we wake up at this fishing pond, and they're having a competition, but there's only one fish in the pond left. So we catch it and give it to the guy who's judging the competition, I guess, and he's like, oh, this is a nice skull, and we're like, dude, that's a fish, what are you on about? And then we pass out again. But this time we wake up back in the meadow, and then we break these little eye crystal things and break the spell we're under. And would you look at that, it's the Soul Curator. So we kick his ass in literally one turn and he runs off. But we give chase, back through the humble boast, breaking the crystals along the way, and the Soul Curator is there again. He summons his minions to fight with him, and this time he puts up a little more of a fight. We beat him in 2 turns this time. He pisses himself and cries about how his minions suck and runs off again, where we chase him through the fishing area. And this time he's there with these stinky feet demons that literally fart on you to attack. Still no match for me, dude. I'm drinking coffee in every one of my videos, bro. If you don't think I'm at home with that shit, you're crazy. So he cries some more and runs away again. And this time when we get to him, he fuses a bunch of his minions together to make this crazy Grim Reaper looking dude straight out of fucking Yu-Gi-Oh! During this fight, you can see the Soul Curator is just like watching us from way back there like a fucking coward, dude. When I noticed that, I was giggling for a bit. I can't lie, I had a little giggle. This Phase Reaper is pretty sick though. He creates clones of himself and moves way faster than my smooth chicken cutlet brain can comprehend, so I could like never time my blocks against him. This was by far the hardest fight in the game. Harder than the Dweller, harder than Scrappy-Doo in the fucking basement, dude. I was feeling the pressure. Still didn't die to him though. What can I say? I'm him, dude. I'm fucking him, dude. Anyways, boom. Reaper goes down and the crybaby comes back and is like, well, my next guy is gonna be much stronger. But Sarai creates a portal and hits him with the nothing personal kid and sneak attacks him for 2 times damage, and homeboy fucking vaporizes. Now we're faced with the portal the Fleshmancer has been using to bring him and his minions back and forth between worlds. But there's a couple of problems. One, this thing is booby-trapped, so if it's not destroyed with like a billion cuts, it's just gonna explode, destroying the planet. And 2, it's been infused with magic to resist the Solstice Warrior's power. So it seems like we're kinda screwed until Verlo pops in and is like, "Sawed it, I got this." And he fucking destroys the portal in like 2 seconds, and then dips out. Dude, what? Shortest fucking cameo ever, man. Anyways, we make it past the destroyed portal and are ready to face the final boss. Right after we climb up this impossibly long spiral staircase, that is. The Fleshmancer is looking out on this sick fucking skyline, and we're like, alright man, time to finish you off. And he's like, nah, I'm not a fighter, your business isn't with me, and he teleports away. Turns out, the true final boss is this creature Erlina has turned into. I don't know, man, would you give yourself goat feet for magical powers? I don't think I would. Now I will say, I really like this music, with this electric guitar bouncing riffs back and forth with the keys just going everywhere. It's really menacing, but honestly, I think the Phase Reaper gave me a tougher time, even after she jumps off this cliff and turns into this big demonic monster for Phase 2. The music kicks into overdrive though, and it starts going real wild. Really good final boss music, man. This game has an incredible soundtrack. I can't give it enough praise, even though I've been glazing it for the entire video. She will take like half your health bar if she uses this dome attack thing and you don't break out of it fast enough though, so you've got to be careful about that. Nah, but for real though, I kicked her ass. I used the combo move where Zale and Valir combined the Sunball and the Moon Meringue, and it was pretty sick. She was all like, no! He had to be there. After the fight with Erlina, Roshan jumps through the portal and is like, alright, they won. Time to go, April. He was like, ah man, I want to see the final surprise. Turns out, the Dweller of Dread that the Fleshmancer took through the portal after our first fight has turned into a World Eater. Roshan says we're the only ones who can defeat it, and walks away through the portal. The time has come. Zale and Valir say their final goodbyes to their friends, and they take off. But before that, Keeks writes their stories into her book, and they say farewell, and fly off for one last fight. The fight against the World Eater is this fucking bullet hell segment, dude, and I never would have guessed it. This segment is super cool, but it just came out of nowhere, and only lasts like a minute or so, but it is a lot of fun. And just like that, the world is saved, and the credits roll. Now before I get into my final thoughts for this game, I usually let the credits roll after finishing a game, but do you guys remember the crypt in Mirth that has like 100,000 fucking tombstones crediting people? Yeah, it turns out that actually is the credits. These credits roll for over 2.5 hours, man. They thanked everyone and their fucking dog. Literally. That is insane. But I guess a lot of people paid to have their names at the end of the credits here, so I guess that's kind of cool. Anyways, that was Sea of Stars, and all I can say is, wow. What an amazing game all the way through. It's genuinely up there with some of the best RPGs I've ever played, and it's probably my favorite game of the year. For reference, this was written on December 31st. Fucking made the cut, dude. Once again, like I said at the start of the video, the combat in this game with the action commands is so fucking satisfying. It brings me back to the good old days of like Mario and Luigi, and the story writing is just incredible all the way through. This is the first game that I've put like 40 hours into that I've never wanted to skip any of the dialogue. Which, if you know me, you know I'm really bad for that. But this game kept me engaged all the way through with great pacing and characters that I actually cared about. Like I said, I was actually holding back tears when Garl died, man. I was a fucking baby, dude. I know I spent like half this video glazing the soundtrack as well, but it's hands down the best soundtrack of 2023, at least for me, and that's by a fucking mile, dude. Like, it's so good. All in all, man, this is an amazing game. I 100% recommend it to anyone, not even just people who like RPGs. If you like video games, do yourself a favor and buy this game. It's on fucking Game Pass. If you have a Game Pass subscription, just do yourself a favor. I promise you won't be disappointed. That's all I really have to say, guys. This is probably my game of the year for 2023. Even over Baldur's Gate 3. Just because I could not get into the Baldur's Gate combat though. That game is fucking perfect too. Anyways, thanks you guys so much for watching. This script is 46 pages long. It's gonna be a nightmare to edit, but I really hope you guys enjoyed it. If you made it to the end of this video, whether you watched it or you just had it on in the background, I really appreciate you listening to me ramble for however long this video ends up being. If you could send some engagement my way, whether it's a rating or comments or by hitting the subscribe button, that would really make my day. I'm hoping to get this video out in the first week of January. First video of the new year. I'm really hoping to find my niche this year with what type of content I want to make, because last year I was a little everywhere, just kind of throwing shit at the wall and seeing what stuck. But anyways, I won't take up any more of your time. Thanks so much once again for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.